Let's get weird and talk wolf. Arrgh! Hey everyone, this is David Stark from Watch Your Pass, and I know what you're gonna say. You hated Lamb, but like Wolf. I can't really explain it either. They're both very weird movies. I guess maybe I'm just more of a dog person than a lamb person. I don't know, but I just saw Wolf. It's a very weird film, but I really liked it. It's not going to be for everyone. Like, let me be clear, this is not going to be a film for everyone. But if you give it a chance, you might just enjoy it. I thought it was really interesting. It was imaginative. It was very different, very, very, very different. And overall, I enjoyed it. I liked a lot of what it did, but it's weird. It's very, very weird. So my hot take is, uh, I love this film, though I don't think it'll be for many people. And if the IMDb ratings are any indication, that's correct. But it's a very weird film. If you give it a chance, it takes you on a fascinating journey with some really great acting. But my suggestion is, if you don't like it within like the first 10 or 15 minutes, you're probably not going to like it. And the film, it's not long, but it has similar themes throughout. So if you don't like the first like 10 or 15 minutes of it, just put on something else. But if you do like it, if you think it's intriguing, you're in for a wild ride. So let's get ready to talk about Wolf. Look, I got my animal print shirt. This has got tigers, not wolf. I don't have any of those cool wolf howling at the moon shirts, but this is what I got. I have my lights set up for, it's called Moonlight, so I guess this is as close as I'll get. And let's talk about it. I'm going to talk to you about the film, a few things I liked about it, a few things I didn't like, and the ending. So if you don't want to know anything about the film, you don't want spoilers, duck out now, because as you can imagine, I'm talking about the ending. There will be spoilers. So in Wolf, you have George MacKay, who plays Jacob, who is this person who believes he is a wolf trapped in a human's body. And his parents send him to this, I don't know, institution, facility that has all sorts of other kids who believe that they are animals trapped in other people's bodies. There's a parrot, there's a squirrel, there's a dog, there's a lion, there is a cat. There are a bunch of these animal people in this facility. And while Jacob is there, he meets Cecile, who believes she's a wildcat trapped in a person. And they form kind of a kinship. They kind of understand each other. And as Jacob is in this facility, he becomes more in tune with his animal side, with his wolf mentality, and that, as you can imagine, causes problems in a facility that's supposed to treat you. So, things I loved about this film. The first is the acting and the transformations. I mean, sure, they can look a little ridiculous. You've got, a person pretending to be a bird, you have a person pretending to be like a squirrel, but there are some very impressive transformations here. First and foremost is George MacKay as the wolf. Like when he goes into his like wolf form, his body just completely transforms. Like he walks with a different gait. He kind of contorts his body to kind of accommodate walking on all fours. His like expressions change. He becomes a little bit more animalistic in what he does. And the first time you see this, when he's walking down the hallway, it looks visually imposing. He looks like a very different person. The other people, the other animal transformations in this film are similar. They're not all as good as George MacKay. LilyRose Depp does a good job as the Wildcat. She's not as kind of transformational. Her body doesn't contort as much, but she does change her gait as well. She walks on all fours. She changes her kind of overall mentality. And when they are both in their animal form, kind of like sizing each other up, that's actually a very fun scene to see, because they both just act very different from what you would expect people to act, because they're animals. And altogether, when you have everyone kind of in their, I don't know, animal form, whatever you want to call it, it's this wonderful, ridiculous, but very interesting menagerie of characters that you get to watch. The second thing I loved is the setting. This film is set in like a hospital, and it has this sterile hospital type setting that is perfectly kind of pushed against this wilderness backdrop. Like the hospital itself is kind of in a clearing in the woods. So just outside the walls, you see this beautiful forest that surrounds this hospital. And the hospital has these giant, beautiful windows that let you just look out and see the forest throughout. But then inside the hospital, it's very sterile. Everything is kind of modern and white. And even in kind of the playroom, they have like a fake forest setup. So you've got, turf grass, and you've got fake plastic trees and things like that. It's this wonderful kind of juxtaposition of this man-made environment surrounded by this beautiful nature, and it's a really striking thing to see, and it makes the setting for this movie, it's just perfect. It really evokes all the feelings that you would expect in a film like this. The third thing I loved is the sound, and that's both the music and kind of the overall sound effects as well. The third thing I loved about this film is the sound, and that's both the music and the overall sound effects. The film has this really great music, especially when some of the animal aspects are coming out. You get this kind of otherworldly, classical at times, sometimes a little bit more techno, but it's this otherworldly music that evokes both kind of wonder and a little tiny bit of dread. It's an interesting combination that just is a little bit unsettling. It feels like you're transformed into another world, because you kind of are when you're following these characters. You also have some really great scenes where the music comes in and it kind of heightens the ridiculousness of this whole encounter. There's a scene later on where there's this like 80s workout music that plays very loudly over this chaos that ensues, and it's perfect for this one scene because you have this kind of like very manufactured fun song with just this wild chaos that's going around. So it's not just the music, you also have the sound effects as well that really do a great job with this film, both when they're transformed and the characters are making their animal sounds. It does a really good job of evoking the animals that these characters are becoming, because it's perfectly set. But you also have oftentimes when the characters are kind of trying to either fight the urge to become an animal or dreaming about their animal side, you get this nice mix of nature sounds, wilderness sounds. Sometimes you get like a howling wind or the sound of snow, of fresh snow. You have all these wonderful natural sounds that are mixed in and then transport you back to this sterile hospital environment. It's a nice combination of the like wild nature of these characters and the things that they're trying to fight against, with the very calm manufactured feel in the hospital. And the last thing I loved is the weirdness. I mean, like I said, this movie is weird. It's very weird. I love the strangeness. I loved how unique it was and how different it was. But that being said, things I didn't like, or I guess maybe things that I could see people not liking, is the film is weird. Like, it's really weird. If you're not feeling this movie early on, like I said, I wouldn't try to stick with it, because it doesn't change. Like, the film is exactly what it wants to be. It's an odd, surreal type journey of self-discovery for Jacob and some of the other characters. They kind of determine whether or not they're going to be animals or whether or not they're going to be people, and that's fine. This movie is weird to be weird, and this movie accepts its weirdness on its sleeve and takes you along on this journey. So if you don't love it, if you don't like it at the start, it's not going to get better for you. But if you do like it like me, then you are going to have a very interesting night. So speaking of interesting things, let's talk about the ending. Again, if you don't want to know what happens in the film, bounce out now, go, I don't know, run wild. There we go. And because you're going to get spoilers. So the film is really about kind of Jacob exploring his wolf side, the kind of like animal side of him, and coming to terms with it. And then also his interactions with Cecile, who's played by LilyRose Depp, and her kind of animal side as well. And it's interesting because I think this is the first time that Jacob has found someone who truly understands him and is kind of an equal to him. And so not only is he coming to terms with his wolf persona, but he's also exploring what it means to interact in that persona with someone else who is an animal as well. So you got some really interesting scenes where they're kind of feeling each other out. They're vying for territory. They are trying to kind of be human or animal at different times. So that's kind of the main crux of this film. Eventually, after some discipline, Jacob just can't control it. He still sneaks out in his wolf form. And the zookeeper, who's played by Paddy Considine, finds him. And Jacob, who's overcome with the wolf, he's already been punished by this person. He doesn't like him. He attacks the zookeeper. So the zookeeper chains him up in a pen, like a holding pen for an animal, although it's a little bit bigger, but it's definitely it's a pen that you're not going to escape from. He chains him up with this kind of Hannibal mask on him, and he chains one arm, so he's basically stuck. Like, Jacob is not going anywhere. You also see after this some of the backsliding that can happen. You had one character, his name was Rufus. He was a German Shepherd. He left seemingly cured of this, but then he comes back. His mom takes him back. He's in his like German Shepherd outfit and is in his dog form, and he ends up, like a sense of defiance or whatever for being back here. He urinates on the floor, and so his mom is embarrassed. His mom goes away, and the zookeeper, after his mom leaves, takes Rufus's head and kind of rubs it in the pee. Kind of what you would do with a dog, but it also shows just kind of how ruthless the zookeeper is. This is an important thing throughout. He's a little bit sinister. Some of his tactics seem a little bit, I don't know, avant-garde or maybe skirting the line of safety. But here you get to see that he is actually kind of a ruthless person, and you'll find that out very soon, how ruthless he can be. So later that night, Cecile, she gets full into her cat form. Like she paints whiskers on her face. She goes into cat form, and she sneaks over to Jacob's pen. And so since Cecile is in her cat form, Jacob is in his wolf form. They ain't nothing but mammals, so they do it like they do on the Discovery Channel. The next morning, Cecile is discovered in Jacob's room. I mean, she's outside the pen. She doesn't get in the pen, but she is kind of sleeping next to him. She's discovered by one of the nurses and kind of let out. And then this leads to one of my favorite scenes in this movie. Maybe it actually might be my favorite. It's this wonderfully ridiculous dance scene where one of the doctors is trying to, one of the things that they try to do is get these kids to do human things, like uniquely human things. So they'll have them laugh and they'll have them joke, and then this time they'll have them dance. And so there's this wonderful dance scene that has this like 80s workout kind of power music on it, playing in the background, and she's trying to get these characters to dance, and Rufus is really the only one who's like really into the dancing. So while this is happening, you have this music blaring. You're taken to Jacob's cell, and the zookeeper's there with this like shock wand, and he starts punishing Jacob, because he's not leaving his wolf persona. He wants him to see the consequences of his actions, I guess. And so he starts punishing Jacob, and then Jacob starts to whimper and howl. And so you're transported back to this dance scene, and you have this ridiculous dance workout happening while you hear like Jacob's howling of a wolf. And that causes a little bit of unrest with these kids. And so they start to be a little bit defiant. They start to go into their animal mode, and they just go crazy. They become wild in this room and start just going full animal. So eventually the zookeeper comes in and starts yelling at them. And it's interesting because he essentially out animals each of them. He picks a few of them and just goes up to them and punishes them by essentially being a more dominant version of what they are. So this is most noticeable when he takes on Rufus, who's a dog. The dog is barking at him, and the zookeeper just kind of gets up in his face and starts growling, and Rufus instantly kind of drops down into a submissive pose. But he does it with, there's a horse person who he starts like neighing at, and there's a parrot person who he basically just insults her, and then there's a squirrel who he also insults. But he essentially establishes dominance over all the people. After the zookeeper establishes dominance, that kind of turns down the unrest. And then later that night, Cecile sneaks into, I assume the zookeeper's office, I'm not sure whose office it is, and grabs the keys to Jacob's pen. And when she's leaving, she gets confronted by one of the doctors, and she essentially incapacitates her and books it. She gets to Jacob's room, she frees him from the cell, and they head out to the gate to run out of the facility into the wilderness. So they run to the gate, and Jacob's trying to convince her to get over. She's wondering how they're going to get over because there's barbed wire. And Jacob's like, it's fine, don't worry about it. And then Cecile's kind of true choice happens. So Cecile is looking at the wilderness, and she asks Jacob bluntly, how will we eat, how will we sleep, how will we get money? All very good questions. Very, very good questions, Cecile. I don't know. I guess she tells him that Jacob can just pretend to be better. Like he can just pretend to be a person, and then they can be together. They can stay in the camp, and they can survive. And then Jacob has this really great line. I loved this line, and George MacKay's delivery is just perfect here. Jacob goes to her. He says, "It's not about surviving. It's about surviving as me." He says, "We'll manage somehow. We'll run wild together. We'll be free. We'll be ourselves," which is kind of the crux of this movie. It's like, are you going to be who you are, or are you going to be what, I don't know, society or what the establishment, whatever you want to call it, wants you to be? Jacob clearly wants to be who he is. Cecile not so much, it seems like. Or maybe she wasn't all the way in on the cap or something. Maybe it was more of a convenience thing. But after Jacob says this, she, goes to him and she says, I'm not a wildcat. I'm sorry, I'm not. Doesn't mean I don't care about you. And then she asks him to please stay. But at this point, Jacob is he is decided on his path. He knows what he wants to be. He's been dreaming about being free. He's been dreaming about kind of being overtaken by the wolf. So he climbs the gate, he jumps the fence, and he's off. He runs into the wilderness. After he gets a little bit in, he turns back and you see Cecile in the camp, and you hear whistles kind of from the camp as the alarm is raised, because they've eventually found out that Jacob and Cecile have escaped. So Cecile's staying, she doesn't leave, but you hear the alarms, and then you hear Jacob howling kind of in the background as you see her face. And then after that, you see a very brief scene of Jacob in the wilderness, kind of free at last. And this was a very poetic scene, because the scene itself is exactly what Jacob had been dreaming earlier. There are a few scenes throughout where he's kind of as a wolf in the forest, kind of rolling around in the grass, or kind of hunting, or being a free person, or I guess a free wolf in this case. And so the last scene in the film, you get to see him. It looks like he's finally made it. He's finally become, the thing that he wanted to be. And that's it. That's the movie. That's Wolf. So, like I said, it is a weird movie, but I liked it. I very much appreciated it. I liked how it was different. I liked the acting. George MacKay did a really, really good job. LilyRose Depp did a good job as well, but George MacKay was kind of the standout in this. And overall, I thought it was fun. I thought it was interesting. I don't know if other people will like it, but I did. So that's my review of Wolf. If you liked this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. And please check out my other content. I've got other movie reviews, I've got interviews, unboxing videos, and weekly movie recommendations. So thanks so much, and stay wild. Ow!